Alright guys, let's upgrade our AIO to the new Kraken Elite 360. Now this is the 2024 model. Now you notice right on my H9 Elite that I actually do have a Kraken Elite already, but this is going to be last year. So I'm going to bring you up a little bit closer here. So I don't know if you can see that, but we do have the Kraken Elite, and this is last year's model, which is an awesome AIO with a really nice display. However, new for this year, they added a way larger screen with an RGB lighting around. Now I actually have the white version, which I'm going to show you right over here. Alright, and this is the white version. Now I just recently did a complete tutorial on this Vision Compact build. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link down below. You'll notice the difference between the sizes, and what I like about the new AIO is that it actually gives you 3 custom readouts instead of the 2. Larger display and that RGB ring that looks really nice. Alright, so let's go ahead and unbox the Kraken Elite 360 in the black color. Now, with the black color, you do have 2 options. You have the non-RGB, which is the one that I have here, and the one with RGB. So just to give you an example here, I have the white box here. If you get the RGB version, you'll get a set of F360 single frame fans, obviously with RGB. However, if you're someone who already has their own fans, which I'll be using the SL Infinity fans, you definitely want to just save a couple of dollars by getting the non-RGB if you already have fans that you can already use. So let's go ahead and open it up here and see what we get. All right, right in front we get a quick start and manual guide. And here's the actual AIO with the nice little pump here. Let's go ahead and remove this. All right, here's the radiators. Go ahead and take a look at this nice oversized pump here, which I absolutely love. I don't know about you guys, but I love circular pumps. I know they make boxy ones, but I just, for some reason, I just prefer the circular versions. Now, everything here is covered, and we do have pre-installed thermal paste, so we're definitely going to save that. Another thing too is that the brackets that come installed, we do have to change that for the AM5 since I have an AM5 processor, but follow whichever CPU that you have. And taking a closer look at the radiator here, the really unique thing about the 2024 version is that they have a new breakout cable that goes on top, which means the actual pump itself has no other connectors, making it as clean as possible. So I'll show you guys exactly how to install it. Now the non-RGB comes with these black single fans. They're 120 millimeters, but like I said earlier, we're not going to be using these fans at all. We're going to be using the SL Infinity by Leon Lee. So we're just going to leave that in the box. All right, next up is going to be the breakout cable. This is the one that I was referring to that connects on the actual radiator itself. All right, inside the other mounting accessories, they're going to give us everything that's needed to mount your fans here. And what's very interesting here is that they actually give us a connector here. So the breakout cable, this connector specifically, which is the one that we're not going to use, this is the connector for the F360 fans. So they gave us an adapter here. You would just use this adapter here to connect specifically to the NZXT fans, but we're not going to be using this at all. We're going to have all of our screws needed to screw down your fans and some thumb screws here to lock the radiator in place. The first thing we want to do here is that since we're reusing our SL Infinity fans, we want to take off our old AIO first. So the first thing we want to do here is, of course, clean this up as much as possible. Since I have my GPU vertically mounted, I'm going to have to remove the vertical mounts. Unplug the streamer cables because, as you notice, the motherboard streamer cable, I'm using it over the actual loop. So I'm going to have to unplug everything and, of course, make sure everything is shut down, powered off, and all the cables off. Laying down the PC down might be a lot easier to do all of this as well, which I do recommend. Now, since there's already thermal paste, we are going to need to clean our CPU as well. And I'll be using the Arctic MX cleaner. You could also use 99% isopropyl alcohol and some paper towels to clean it off. But however, Arctic has sent me their MX cleaner, so I'm definitely interested to test this out and see if it's a lot easier to clean. All right, so to simply remove our AIO, we're going to unscrew these 4 screws here. All right, got that unplugged. All right, and of course, you're gonna notice some thermal paste on top and some thermal paste on the bottom as well. So we are going to clean that off real quick. And again, I'll be using the Arctic MX cleaner. Let's go ahead and take one out. Let's see how these perform. Oof, definitely has a strong smell. And it has like a little wipe here. Nice size. So I'm gonna first start with the actual CPU here first. All right, as you can see with one wipe, it took off a good amount. And before I get rid of this one, I'm just gonna quickly take off the excess. Really impressed with this wipes, but I will say that it has a very, very strong smell. And I'm gonna use one more just because I like to have the CPU squeaky clean. All right, and after using 2 of these, I was able to have the CPU cleaned off and also the contact from the old AIO. So definitely a great cleaner, just that the sense of it is very, very powerful. So you guys have been warned. So let's go ahead and remove the remaining standoffs from the old AIO. Since we're already here, let's go ahead and apply the standoff kit that comes inside the new Kraken Elite. And you'll notice that these are slightly different versus previous Kraken. You'll see it has like a little sleeve, but this one's a little bit different. So we're going to use the thick side goes in, and we're going to screw it in these 4 little holes here. And if for whatever reason you were using a CPU cooler that used the existing retention bracket, then you can also remove that as well. All right, so we have our motherboard prep with our AM5 standoffs. And then the last thing to do here for your older AIO is to obviously remove it off your case. So I'm gonna do that real quick so that we can remove these SL Infinity fans. Now every case is different, but hopefully you remembered how your AIO was placed. All right, so I removed the old Kraken, which is right over here. We're gonna have to remove this bracket, and we're gonna be removing all these fans, of course, because we're gonna be reusing these and swapping them out for the new Kraken Elite. All right, so I got the SL Infinity fans out. Remove the side bracket. Now we're left with our old AIO pretty much naked. So we no longer need our old AIO, so we can put that away. All right, so let's go ahead and install the fans here. So once again, I'm using the SL Infinities. Now, if you're going to side mount an AIO and you want to use the SL Infinity fans, I recommend using the reverse blade, so that way you can see the beautiful mirrored finish. So when it comes to the SL Infinities, we do have a connector right on here and not a connector here. This is to daisy chain another fan. So you want to make sure that the actual connector is opposite of the twos, otherwise they're not going to fit. So with that in mind, we're going to place the fans in, and you're going to grab your fan screws. I'm just simply going to reuse the ones that I already have. All right, finally got the fans nice and loaded. In case of the H9 Elite, there is a side bracket here that we're going to use. All right, now that we have our radiator attached to our side bracket here, make sure you still keep this plastic on. That way it's not touching the thermal paste. And once we have it installed on our case, we can then remove it and replace this with the AM5 retention bracket. So for now, I'm going to leave this breakout cable not plugged in yet, because I just want to put this inside the case first, and we can always connect that right after. So I'll see you guys right there. All right, so here's the back of my H9 Elite. Of course, I already removed the previous AIO. We're going to take our Kraken Elite here that's already attached to my side bracket here, and we're going to pass this huge pump over here. But before I do that, I want to first connect my Infinity fans real quick. So I do have this cable right here that I want to connect very quickly before I put it in, because once it's in, it's going to be a lot harder for me to put this in. All right, got that connector in, and now we're ready to push the pump through. As you could just let it hang. And for the H9 Elite, has like a small little play here. So right about here, I need to start pushing this down so it can fit in. All right, we got that in. Let's go ahead and lock it in place. All right, got the AIO connected. So let's go ahead and flip the case over and see what we got in the front. All right, so this is what we have in the front now. You'll see the AIO pump is hanging with all of our connectors here that we're going to eventually connect. But I want to bring you guys close here for those that are considering to side mount this AIO. You can see I just had enough space. Let me just bring that camera in a little bit closer. I had just enough space between the top fans, which is awesome. But for now, we're going to install the pump directly on our CPU. All right, so before we're able to place the pump on our CPU, I'm going to first have to change out the retention bracket on this AIO pump. Like I showed you earlier, inside the packaging, we do get the AM5/AM4 retention bracket. And so we can start removing this plastic piece here. And just be careful and mindful of the thermal paste. And of course, if you want to use a different thermal paste, you're more than welcome to. You can just wipe this off and use whatever thermal paste that you want to use. But for now, we're gonna use the one that's included. So to take off the retention bracket, we just have to pull it apart. It comes out very easily. And pay attention to the retention bracket. You'll see that these brackets have kind of like two sides, a very flat side and a rounded side. And of course, the flat side is going to go in. All right, same thing here. We want to make sure we put the flat side up. So we're going to slide that right in. And make sure we grab the other side as well. Since we have the pre-installed thermal paste, now we can just place that AIO right on top of the standoffs that we installed earlier. You don't have to press it in just yet, but we're going to open up the thumb screws here. And we're going to use these screws to screw it on the retention bracket itself. Alright, once you have all 4 screws nice and tight, I'm going to go ahead and connect my motherboard streamer cable here. So I like to tuck the tubes a little bit downward so that I can, so that way I can hide it as much as I can. Alright, mother cable is in. Let's go ahead and install the breakout cable. So it's going to be this long cable that I showed you earlier, and that's going to go attached right over here. But I did Velcro strap this one. Since this is the fan connector, I'm not going to use this at all. We're just going to be using these 3. So let's go move this case here first. Alright, first what we're going to do here is going to plug it in. Alright, breakout cable's in. Now the next connector we're going to connect real quick while we're up here is going to be this. It's going to be a 3-pin that's going to connect to your motherboard, which is the one that specifically states it's for AIOs. Reference your motherboard just in case. On my motherboard here, the AIO pin's right on the right side, so I'm just going to quickly put that in. And then these 2 will be connected eventually, but we're going to tuck that on the top here. Push that in. Start feeding all of this in. Now, since I Velcro strapped this already, I'm seeing here that it's gonna be better if I actually do that inside the back of the case here. So, all right. Paying attention to the cable here. How do I want to route this? Okay, so I'm gonna remove the connection again, and I'm gonna tuck it underneath this loop here. I feel like that's better. That way it's easier to pull all the way in. Alright, now that we have the breakout cable on the back, we are going to connect those real quick, but first let me go ahead and connect my GPU real quick. Alright, so I just put in the GPU and I also rearranged my streamer cables, and I just decided to use the GPU streamer cable to kind of like push the AIO tube more this way, so that way I can see all of the fans on this side. But again, everything is personal preference. Alright, at the back of our case here, let's go ahead and open this magnetic door. And a lot of chaos here. Hopefully it's a lot better than mine, but the breakout cable that we just pulled out earlier is right over here. So these are the 2 connectors that we're definitely going to need to connect. The USB gets plugged in directly to the motherboard or a internal hub if you have one. And right over here we have our SATA power connector to give power to the Kraken Elite. Gonna move some of these cables aside. Alright, so I was able to route these cables behind all of the bulk of the cable here. So make sure you have a SATA connector for your PSU. Some of these have a multi-connector like 4, and if you don't, then reference your PSU, you might still have those cables. So we need to connect the SATA cable into one of these slots. And the final thing here is to connect the USB connector. Now I have a NZXT internal hub that's right over here. Otherwise you would have to go and connect this directly to your motherboard. But the hub, it makes it a lot easier. Alright, we got the USB connected to the internal hub. We have SATA power, and try my best to clean that up as much as possible. But the good thing about these dual chamber cases is that they give us a lot of space, and a lot of these come with these magnetic doors here. That way you can hide a lot of those cables. So let's go ahead and take a look at the front and power it on. Alright, let's go ahead and fire it up. Absolutely beautiful. Definitely loving that RGB ring, and I love how the size of the screen is a lot larger now. Another thing I like too is that the contrast or the quality of the display is so much better than the original Kraken. It almost looks OLED, which is crazy. Definitely am loving it. Another thing I'm noticing here too is that the circle is very large, and this 4080 Super is definitely very large as well, and you can see it just made just enough space where I can see the whole pump, which is awesome. And taking a closer look at the cables here on top, we have that breakout cable in between the tubes. Again, it's a pro and a con. I like it because the actual pump is super clean. There's no other cables besides the tubes. Now I have the strimmer cables going around the tubes to kind of hide it, so I think I did a good job, but again, it's all about personal preference. So in terms of controlling this, we're going to use the NZXT Cam software. So in order to control the screen here, you are going to have to use the NZXT Cam. Now this allows you to read the CPU, GPU, and other information of your system. You got system specs that gives you more details of your system here, and over here under lighting is where you can do custom. But most likely you're going to have to update the firmware, so let's go ahead and click update. Alright, make sure you guys read this carefully here. Make sure you don't unplug or turn off your computer during this update. So I'm going to click I understand and hit start. And that's going to do a firmware update, and you'll notice some little graphics there letting you know that it is updating. Alright, now that it updated successfully, on the default we do have 3 separate information, such as GPU, CPU, and liquid temperatures, and so much more. So under LCD display, we can customize it as much as possible. While I love this NZXT Kraken Elite, you can actually disable the logo completely, and that pretty much goes away, or you can put it back in if you want to, but I like to just leave it as clean as possible. Over here you have visualization here, so you can actually change so many different color options here, whatever you want that to be. You could also change the color of the background to whatever you want. And as for readings here, you can change the primary readout, which is going to be the larger of the 3. And at the current software version of this, you have all of these options here. You can do liquid temperature, CPU temps, CPU load, CPU clock speeds. So if I hit clock speeds, it tells me obviously the clock speeds of my CPU here. So a whole bunch of awesome things. I'm just going to leave it at GPU temperature for now. And each of these can be customized further. You can change the number to a different color, and you can even change the text to a different color, which is awesome. Now, one of the best features of having an LCD screens, of course, is the ability to add images or GIFs. So in this case, we have all of these options here. And if you love that triple infographic here, you would just click on triple infographic plus GIF. So when we click that here, now we have more options to upload or browse. So in this section here, when you hit browse GIFs, you have the option of searching up any type of GIFs that's powered by Tenor, I guess. I personally don't use this, but there's like a whole bunch of different GIFs that you can put. And it allows you to basically resize them, and you hit save. Basically give that a minute to load, and that's already there. Now browsing the GIFs is nice and convenient, but you could also upload your own GIFs, PNG and JPEG. It supports 32 megabyte images here, so when I hit upload here, I personally like to use my own type of GIFs that I've already saved. So I'm a huge fan of Pokemon, so I like to download their sprites. So for example, I can just open this one and resize it to however I want to. So let's say I want to take that right there, hit save, and we're just basically gonna let that load. Alright, now that's loaded very nicely, and under previous images it'll give you the option of all of your previous ones, and you can go back and swap them out. Now from here again, you can have the logo of the NZXT, or I like to just leave it out. So I really appreciate NZXT for giving us that option. Really love that a lot. And of course we can customize the readouts here to whatever we want. And the next thing here, since this does have a nice light ring here, right here it has synchronize, so I'm just going to shut that off real quick, so that way we can have our own lighting effect. I believe synchronize just kind of synchronizes against the image, but I like to just customize it here, and there's a whole bunch of different custom effects here. So we have spectrum wave, for example, pulse, a whole bunch of different effects that you can customize and check out for yourself. So this one looks like it has a mixture between 2 colors. So if I want to put, a white color against a red, I can just leave it like that, and I'm pretty much good to go. Now under cooling, you have more options of the actual pump control here, and over here on their fan, if you're using NZXT's own fan, then it will show up here. However, I control the fan separately via L Connect 3. So over here on the pump, we have the option of customizing the speeds of our pump here. Since I do a lot of gaming and a lot of editing here, I personally like to leave it at performance. Again, that's just me personally. You can adjust the curves as well to whatever you like. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial of the brand new NZXT Kraken Elite 360. Definitely an awesome upgrade over last year, and the price for this is definitely on the pricier side, but you are paying for a beautiful display with a lot of custom effects and a really good pump. So guys, thanks so much for watching, guys. Firewolf out.